Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today I am going to be doing a video all about my thoughts, my review, my feelings on this book, House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas, Crescent City, book 2. First things first that I'm going to say is that this video is definitely going to contain spoilers. I don't feel like I can talk about this book without potentially spoiling things that happen in Crescent City book 1, House of Earth and Blood, and also don't feel like I can really talk about this book without spoiling things. So if you haven't read it and you don't want to be spoiled, please click off this video now. You have been warned. I've put it in the title as well. This is going to be full of spoilers. Sorry about the funny lighting again today. The sun is so bright coming in that I started sitting here and I was just squinting. So I can't be squinting and like at the sun for the whole video. So I hope the lighting's okay and we're just going to roll with it. I was also tempted to make notes on my thoughts and kind of have a more cohesive video, but I don't feel like I can. This book just left me at the end going, ah! That's the only way I can describe it, the only way I can put it into words or noises. So I'm going to try and talk about my thoughts and feelings chronologically through the story and through the book, and kind of give you some pointers of what I felt whilst I was reading it. I literally sat and read this in such big chunks. I was going to film kind of like a vlog of reading it, but because I was reading it in such big chunks, it just didn't feel right, and I got to a point where I was like, well, I've already read half of it and I haven't filmed. So I just decided to do it this way. So I'm not going to hold this up the whole time, but I'm holding it up long enough that hopefully this will be the one of the, I don't make my own thumbnails, as I'm sure you can tell, so hopefully this will be one of the thumbnails that gets chosen automatically. So first things first, I loved this book, and the ending, we're just going to go there quickly, absolutely like blew my mind. It's left so many questions unanswered. I've got so many questions going forward now, but let's go back to the beginning and let's talk about a few things that happened at the beginning of the book. So the prologue, I literally sat there and went, WTF, who are these people? Am I supposed to remember who these people are? I've only just read House of Earth and Blood. How do I not know who these people are? And I was really confused, and it did kind of put me on the back foot a little bit with it, because I was like, what's going on? I didn't really understand. Was also started listening to it on audiobook before having a physical copy, because my physical copy took a little bit longer to arrive, and I received it quite late in the evening from Amazon, and I missed the delivery at my local Waterstones store where I had my Waterstones edition sent to. It didn't arrive until 3:30, and I wouldn't have been able to get it. The store shut before I'd have been able to get there at the end of the day. So I downloaded the Audible version and I was listening to it, and I was like a little bit confused, and I was also trying to make dinner, so you know. So that initially first was a bit like, what the heck's going on? But then when we came away from the prologue and we started experiencing, let's move that out of the way before I knock that over, and we started getting back into the normal characters that I expected, it gave me the option to maybe reflect, it gave me the opportunity to reflect a bit more on that prologue. And obviously the prologue is really quite important because we have the character of Sophie Renast. She's a Thunderbird. Her brother Emil, they're on the run. They've escaped. They're escaping a camp, and then everything else that kind of entails with that, kind of then obviously does get discussed further on throughout the book. So it kind of makes sense, and you kind of then can piece everything together more so from the prologue. So I love that we kind of just jumped back into the world, and one of my criticisms of House of Earth and Blood was that I felt like the first couple of 100 pages were really quite tough to get through. Was easier second time round because I kind of knew what was going on, but they were quite world building heavy. There was lots of information, lots of stuff happened. And obviously in House of Earth and Blood, we have the death of Danica and the wolf pack quite early on as well. So you kind of are like, whoa, like what the heck? So there was so much kind of that went on initially in that first book, and there was a lot of world building for a new world that we didn't know anything about. Whereas I felt like this book, pacing wise, I feel like was maybe a bit better, because we were straight back in with the action. Only criticism I have with the pacing is that I feel like so much happened in this book that I feel like I instantly need to reread it. I feel like there's probably stuff that I've missed. like I said, some of it I was listening to just on audio whilst I was doing chores around the house. So I feel like maybe there is bits I've maybe missed because so much happened. And now that we've had the ending that we've had that kind of like massive, like, oh my God, mind-blowing moment, that I kind of feel like there might have been clues to it, like running up to it. So I kind of feel like it will be good to reread it as well, for that sense. One thing that I didn't like was the introduction of the character of Cormac. The narrator gave him in the audiobook, gave him gave him a Scottish accent, which I kind of loved because I'm a massive Outlander fan. Outlander's here on my bookshelves, love it. So I kind of like really quite enjoyed that, but I didn't like him as a character initially. And my concern was it was going to be a bit of a Tamlin Rhysand sort of kind of thing going on, because I was so worried that this was going to be someone that was going to coming forward as, I am your fiance, we are getting married, we are engaged. I felt like that was a threat to Hunt, and that this character was going to be used similarly to like Rhysand and potentially change the whole dynamic, and I was not having that. I am, and still am, is that good English? I don't know. Still Hunt and Bryce and Hunt, like their end game. We find out in this book that they're mates. Like, yeah, I'm gunning for them too. I don't want anything to get in their way. Obviously, when I first read ACOTAR, I thought the same for Tamlin and Feyre, but then obviously Tamlin turns into a complete giant knob, and I was all about Rhysand. So I was like, I was not ready for that. I was like, Sarah, I'm not ready for this yet. I don't want to hate Hunt yet. Like, please, can we not do this? Like, and I did enjoy like how his character grew. We found out that he was like an agent for the rebellion, and that was good for me. That was good for me because it was like an openly honest, he's in love with someone else, and Bryce is in love with someone else. So it kind of like they both were on the same page, which I really enjoyed. So that's the first thing that I kind of talk about. Obviously, my phone's buzzing because I've got people messaging me about this book. Obviously, we also have the introduction of Ethan coming into the mix more. He gets thrown out of the pack because he is, in an article, he basically praises what Bryce did, and underhandedly in that kind of goes against what Sabine did and kind of puts bad light on the way that Sabine reacted, whereas he's praising what Bryce did and how good what she did was for everybody, not just for, you know, your sector, but for all people, humans, all different species in the world. When everything went down in the spring, she just wanted everyone to be safe, didn't care where they came from. So Ethan was a really interesting mix. Obviously brings back kind of like the dynamic of the wolf pack, and that kind of like bit that she's missed for so long, that Bryce has like not been involved in, but obviously he is now estranged from the wolf pack. And I really like the way that he fell into line with Rune and kind of Rune's little group, Flynn and Deck, and how he fell into that group and fell in really like just organically and nicely, if that makes sense. Like he just kind of fit in, and it was just like, yeah, okay, he's a wolf, but that doesn't matter. My phone's going crazy, but that doesn't matter because he just kind of fitted in perfectly, and they accepted him into their little group as who he was. Yes, okay, you're a wolf, but you're one of us now. And I really like that dynamic. I didn't quite like the dynamic with Ethan, of him and finding out that he kind of holds a torch for Bryce, and he's held a torch for Bryce the whole time, especially considering the way that he like just completely shut Bryce off and told her that she couldn't go to the sailings when the wolf pack had died. I didn't appreciate that, but I think you learn a bit more about Ethan, who he is and what he is, and he's obviously still a very lost soul because obviously he's striving for this information about his brother. He wants to know that his brother's okay after it gets found out that in the Bone Quarter, the first light from the people that have gone to the Bone Quarter that are dead, their magic, their energy gets kind of fed back into the system, and how they don't actually have an afterlife as such. He's really worried about his brother, so you kind of can feel that there's like he's still not really over it in that funny sense. And obviously also him uncovering these, going to the astronomer and uncovering these fire sprites and a dragon. dragon shifter that are kind of held captive, and also uncovering a potential heir to the Fendir line. I love the reintroduction of the fire sprites, but kind of felt like I wanted more from that, and I feel like they're maybe going to play a bigger part going forward. What I do feel from all these different like storylines that we've got going on, I do feel like Sarah J Maas is really opening up all the potential sort of like spider webbing of the story, going off into lots of different avenues and following lots of different characters. Like we could have a spin-off from, like what she's done with A Court of Thorns and Roses, where we've had Feyre and Tamlin and Rhysand, and like it's Feyre and Rhysand, and then with A Court of Silver Flames kind of gone off and focusing around Nesta and Cassian, and I feel like she's already setting us up for potential spin-offs and potential further books. I've heard somewhere that she's only signed up for a 3-book deal for Crescent City, but I kind of can feel like there's going to be more, and there'll be more spin-offs, like I said, like A Court of Silver Flames, that's focused on other characters that aren't the pivotal point, because I believe she's said that the first 3 books in the Crescent City series will be Bryce and Hunt, and they will be Bryce and Hunt. So with that all being said and done, I feel like that's quite interesting, because we've also got Tharion, and we've got the role that he plays. He's trying to find this boy Emil, this potential Thunderbird, and obviously his kind of place throughout the whole story is he's trying to find. He obviously uncovers that Sophia Renast has had contact with Danica. Let's just quickly go back and talk about Danica whilst I'm talking about her, otherwise I'll forget. I feel like I'm liking Danica less and less as I'm reading the books as a character. And I'm kind of getting to the point now where I feel like it's a little bit unbelievable. Is the whole thing a little bit unbelievable? But the fact that she's got so much information that so much that she's kept from Bryce. Bryce is supposed to be her best friend. So much that she's kept from the Wolfpack as well. All this really, really, really important information. And she's kind of left dribbles of it behind and like little bits here and there. But I just kind of can't help but think that, like, it's getting a bit unbelievable now. What else are we going to find out that Danica also had what other pies has she had her fingers in that we don't know about, and it's just going to, oh, Danica knew this. Oh, and it just be more of an easy scapegoat for potential storylines coming up in the future, if that makes sense. Like, oh yeah, Danica knew this. And linking it in, and that being the way it links in, and it just being a bit of a easy way, if that makes sense. Obviously finding out about who Danica's father was, who sired her, and not sharing that with anybody, and the fact that she was a bloodhound and she could smell people's lineages and everything like that. Obviously that really plays a part in this book, because we can tell then that people aren't necessarily who they say they are, and there's some stuff that maybe is uncovered that, yeah, is a bit more like, okay. So some things that make sense, but I just think it's maybe a bit of an easy, I don't want to say cheap, but a bit of an easy thing to use. Danica, because she's dead, but she's still very much alive. And I don't know how I feel about that. But let's go back to Tharion, because I was talking about Tharion. And I mean, what's he doing? Or what is he doing? I don't understand why he sold himself as a slave to the Viper Queen. I feel like there's a lot more to that than maybe was put on the page, and that maybe that will uncover itself in the next book. But I don't really get that. I get that he doesn't want to be tied to the River Queen anymore, and that he doesn't want to string along her daughter, and I just don't get that. I don't get that, and why he sold himself. And I feel like there's a lot more, like I say, a lot more to that than meets the eye. So let's talk a little bit about the fact that Bryce kept that she knew where Emil was a secret, and then sent Emil off to her parents. I thought that was so lovely, such a humbling moment where she sent this boy off to protect him to her parents, where she knew he'd be loved. However, I can't help but think that sending him off to her parents is potentially going to kick everyone in the bum later on, because it's quite an obvious link. Like, I feel like that's not necessarily the last we've heard of that, and that might not be the end of that story. I feel like that might cause further, it just be a bit too coincidental in the future. But let's talk about Bryce and Hunt's relationship. At the beginning of the book, they are taking their time to consummate their relationship. They feel like, hang on a minute, we need to take this slow. Let's wait until winter solstice, once we know each other a bit more, once we spent more time with each other. We've not spent that much time with each other and don't want to go too ham too soon. That was really frustrating. Let's just say that first. That was really frustrating. And the sexual tension was, I think, such then a build up between the two of them. But then when they actually did do the deed for the first time, I don't know if it's just me, but I kind of felt like it was a little bit underwhelming because it was so kind of primal and it was so like, we'd already had some sexy time before that, but not doing the full deed. And yeah, I kind of felt like then when they did do it, even though it ignites this, oh my gosh, Bryce can teleport like Cormac can, once she's charged with Hunt's powers, once she's charged with his lightning, she then has the ability to teleport. And the funny sort of side of that, I kind of thought that was a little bit like, okay, and now they're mates. Okay. But I do really like that dynamic that they are mates. I watched someone's video where they're like, does every couple have to be mated? Like, but I actually really liked that. I thought that was a really lovely thing. And that kind of, like I said, it secured my thoughts on, we're not going to have any guys coming in and trying to bring them up or anything or get in the way. So I kind of appreciated that. Also have to talk about Rune and his mind talking to Day. He's nice. Yeah, I can't remember what her name is. Daybright, Agent Daybright, and having that communication with her. I knew quite early on, I don't know how early on now, but I got the feeling and I got the gist that she was going to be the Harpy or the Hind. There was something about it. I was like, she's going to be someone bad. I just knew she was going to be someone that he wasn't going to then want to be with. Even though I've heard a few like people whilst they were reading it, I've watched several videos. After watching it, after finishing the book, I watched like all afternoon videos of people reacting to the book, reading the book, their thoughts and their feelings on it. I saw these videos and a couple of people said that they thought that maybe Queen Hypaxia was Agent Daybright, and that it would maybe be a kind of subconscious way of them like not realizing who each other was and then falling in love with each other and then realizing who each other was. Oh my gosh, like we're engaged already, like this is perfect, and kind of like an unconventional way of falling in love. And I kind of like that idea, but I didn't feel that. I knew it was going to be someone that was going to be bad. I knew it was going to be someone, and I kept getting the Harpy and the Hind confused when I was reading it. Again, like I say, I was listening to it on Audible, and it's a sort of book where I think you need to reread it. I kept getting confused between the Harpy and the Hind, and I was convinced it was someone bad. It was someone bad, and that it was going to be like, shit, I shouldn't fall in love with this person because... So, I'm really intrigued at how that's going to go down and how the Hind is going to carry on, because as far as I'm concerned, it was a bit of a blur the last 150 pages, but as far as I'm concerned, she hasn't let on to anybody else that she is who she is. So I think she's still very much the Hind to the people that matter as such. So let's talk about this whole like rebellion thing. They flee. That actual stuff that went on wasn't the stuff that kind of kept me in the book. Don't worry, don't get me wrong. It was like high stakes, and I was like, oh, like wanting to know what's going on and what's going on with this world. But their trip to Idra and trying to uncover stuff there, and then their subsequent trips. Yeah, I don't know if it fell flat for me, but it was just kind of like they could have still been in Crescent City, and I wouldn't have known any different, if that makes sense. The uncovering of the fact that the Asteri are basically magic suckers. As you can tell, I'm a really eloquent person. That's really interesting, and I feel like there's something that's been mentioned in A Court of Silver Flames that is about people that like consume magic and they suck all magic from people, and I feel like that's been, but I'm gonna have to reread ACOTAR because I'm just gonna have to reread it. Absolutely like distraught that Hunt has been rebranded a slave, but I kind of feel like it's worse than before, and it's more like someone has, the Asteri now have control over him rather than him just being a slave, where they have like mind control over him. That really, really worries me. And I worry about Rune as well. Really, really worried about Rune. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, because I'm nearly 20 minutes in and I haven't talked about the fact that Bryce ends up in freaking Preethene. Like, she thinks she's going to hell. And I was late to the party. I was like, what the heck's going on? I was so confused. And because I was listening on audio and I had the physical book in front of me, my eyes kept darting further forward than I was. And cut a long story short, I kind of like read further forward to the bit that said, "Hello, Bryce Quinlan. My name's Rhysand." And I was like, I'm home alone, right? So I'm literally like screaming. I'm like, ah! I'm like, I hope my neighbours can't hear me. The sword ties in with A Court of Silver Flames. And the fact I was, like I said, I was really, really late to the party on this one, because they were described, all these people were being described, and I didn't put two and two together because I was too busy trying to figure out where on earth she was and reading ahead whilst I was listening. And I need to reread the last couple of chapters. She's now in Preethene, however you say it. She's with the guys from ACOTAR. She's with Rhysand and Feyre and Nesta and Cassian and Azriel, and mind blown. And my head is just full of questions. How is this now going to link back? How is she going to get back? Is she going to save Hunt? Is she going to save Rune? What on earth's going to happen to Ethan and the wolf woman that he's like, the alpha that he's saved? What is going to happen? How is she going to get back? Like, I know I probably repeated myself in those questions, but that's what was going through my head. Like, what the heck? How on earth are they now going to do it? And at this point, I didn't know that Sarah J Maas had, she'd come out and said that the next book will be Crescent City 3. And I didn't know this because I hadn't watched the live show and hadn't read the information or heard anyone talk about it, that actually the next book we're going to get is Crescent City 3. I was thinking that we were going to be getting another ACOTAR book. And I was like, well, hang on a minute. How are they going to do this? Are we now going to get an ACOTAR book that has Bryce in it? Are we on the same timeline? Are we on a, like, this is after ACOTAR and ACOTAR's going to carry on and we're not going to see the kind of like the crossover? But apparently it's been mentioned by Sarah that she is releasing Crescent City 3 next. That is going to be the next book. But it still begs the question of whether Bryce is going to be present then in future ACOTAR books, or how much, depending on what happens in Crescent City 3, how much the crossover crosses over. I'm super, super intrigued. I was absolutely not expecting that whatsoever at all. I didn't think we were going to get a crossover. I don't know why, but I just didn't think we were going to get the crossover, and we got a crossover and it was perfect. And now I want the sequel, and I want it now. I needed it yesterday. I needed it a couple of days ago. Like, after this had just come out, I needed the sequel, and I didn't know it until like yesterday. Mind blown. Absolutely mind blown. Like I say, I was not expecting it whatsoever. And that final, like, I'm literally going to find it. The last line, not the epilogue. I'm talking about the last chapter. What chapter is this? Chapter 78. Hello, Bryce Quinlan. My name is Rhysand. So let's talk about a couple of things from that chapter, because she mentions that who I'm guessing is Amren looks like Fury, which is really interesting because Fury is a bit of a kind of like enigma in that no one really knows where Fury comes from and what Fury is. Likewise, Amren is kind of like a bit of an enigma. No one really knows where she comes from. We have this concept that she's not really in her true form. We don't see her in her true form until Aqua. And we don't really know much about Fury. Bryce says that Rhysand, I believe, apart from his wings, let's get the page, see if I can find it, looks like Rune. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it? I'm trying to find it, and I'm also trying to like find it quickly. Where does she say what he looks like? But she says that he looks like Rune, and I can't find it quickly. But she says that he looks like Rune, and that makes me question like how everything's going to link up. Sorry, that was probably just really annoying to watch those last couple of minutes. That makes me really interested in how it's all going to link up. How is Rune related to Rhysand, and are those worlds kind of like related and linked? And obviously, like I say, talking about Fury and Amryn. So many questions, mind blown. Way to like throw it out the park, really. Is that even the phrase? Like, Sarah J Maas, I mean, you have my, like, I'll bow down to you, because you have just kept everybody now on the edges of their seats, hasn't got a clue how this is going to, like, come to light in future. Like, I'm completely floored now and don't know how shit's going to go down now. So, questions. I feel like I've just got questions now rather than thoughts on what might happen, because I think everything is left so like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen now? Everything is so like unanswerable, and it's just questions that you can't, I don't think you can even predict it. Maybe we can, but I feel like I need to reread this already. I feel like I need to reread ACOTAR already, because I feel like this has, I haven't read Throne of Glass, but from a couple of videos that I've watched, everyone says this links more closely to ACOTAR than it does to Throne of Glass, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the future it links to Throne of Glass as well in some way. I am definitely going to get on the bandwagon with Throne of Glass. I've been told that I have to get through the first 3 books and then it gets really good. So I am going to give Throne of Glass, I'm going to give it another go. I've maybe spoken about this before, but I've read the first couple of books and didn't love it as much as ACOTAR, without thinking that actually those are the first books that she published, so they might not be as good as ACOTAR, or they're going to be different from ACOTAR, and that apparently I gave up at the wrong point. Like, I should have kept going because it gets good where I left off. So I'm gonna give Throne of Glass a go, and I'm gonna give it a good go. And they're set up there, they're all ready for me. I need to read them. That's going to be my mission this year before the next book is released, so that if there are any crossovers, I feel like now someone else said, and I can't remember who it was, this is going to be like, we're going to have to read these books in publication order now. Like, in the future, for future readers, they're going to have to be read in publication order now, because if they're tying over and they're crossing over, you don't want to get spoiled for the next book for A Court of Silver Flames and things like that. So you kind of like have to now read everything. So I'm now on the mission to read all of Sarah J Maas's work, read the Throne of Glass series, which I have neglected. And this was a wild ride. This was a wild ride. And I feel like in a couple of days' time or a week's time, when I've had more time to mull it over, I should maybe even do another video, because there's things that I keep going, oh yeah, and what about that? And oh yeah, what about that? And I'm sure there's lots that I've missed out. But I really enjoyed it. It was a wild ride. And any author that can do that to me and can like completely captivate me throughout the whole 801 pages, and then completely pull the rug from under my feet and the wall from over my eyes at the end and completely surprise me. Magic. Absolute magic. Hands down to Sarah J Maas. She is an amazing author, and I can't wait to read more from her, and I can't wait for the next instalment. So thank you, because this was amazing, and the fact that literature can do this to us is just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. If you have read this, I'd love to talk about it with more people, because I've spoken about it to a few people, but not many people have finished it yet. So it's kind of like, you just want to talk about it. You want to shout it from the rooftops that Bryce Quinlan has met Rhysand. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye guys.